All right, let's see if we can get the old pipes warmed up this morning. Good day, everybody. We had the volume right on that thing. Welcome to Fantasy something. What the hell I call this thing now? Old Man Squad. That's what I do. That's the name of this place. Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Bespris. And Bol Bol time has ended. It was a good run. had a good run. I don't, I used to do this thing, and I constantly forget to do it, where last year you guys gave really positive feedback on shows where I just launched straight into a rant, and I can't create a rant, but sometimes a rant just happens. And Bol Bol played 10 minutes yesterday. 10 minutes. He played 30 plus 3 games in a row. Some of them had no Kevin Durant. All of them had no Bradley Beal. Some of them had no Grayson Allen. It kind of felt like maybe he could just jump over Nick Richards. But it turns out the Suns are just a mismatched bunch of weird parts. So anyway, you can probably move on from that one. And we are going to go through the entire card together. But I thought I'd just hit you with that Bol Bol news right at the outset. Nothing's going to be as bad as the Wemby news yesterday. You guys, I'm sure, saw the shows. Of course, Victor Wembanyama out for the year. We will break down the San Antonio Spurs. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's just talk the Phoenix-San Antonio game to start this thing off. So here's the Phoenix side. On your screen, you can see them. Royce O'Neale had 27 points. Go figure. He's one of those guys that every time he pops up, I kind of look at the numbers like, hey, is Royce O'Neale, like, is he a fantasy value these days? And every time I'm like, where's he at? He's number 112 on Yahoo. Where does that put him on Basketball Monster? 108. 10 points, 5 boards, a steal. I mean, it really comes down to whether or not he can get 30 minutes consistently. And seemingly no one on the Suns can get 30 minutes consistently, but maybe is the answer. Maybe Royce. He's had 30 or more in 5 consecutive ball games in 6 of the last 7 he's played. So to that end, he's actually been pretty good. And it's not like he's been super hot. He got hot in this ball game, but a bunch of those games he shot 4 for 11, 4 for 12. So it's possible, I wouldn't say probable, but it's possible that Royce O'Neale should actually be on rosters right now. I kind of need to kick that one around in my brain grapes a little bit more. And the nice thing is, what are you missing out on if you don't pick him up? Not all that much. He's actually rostered in 7 of my 10 cash leagues, although only 16% overall in Yahoo leagues. I think you know what you're getting with Royce is going to be some threes. You're probably going to get about 4 to 5 rebounds, and you might get like a steal. So, again, upside capped. He's not a good percentages guy. I don't think this is one of those things where you got to like race out and get him. But we're in that time of the season now, too, where specialists really move into focus. And I know yesterday's game, Royce had 27 points. He took the most shots on the team. That's not going to happen often. But you can rely on him for threes at the very least. So call him a maybe. If you need it, okay. If you don't, you don't. He's right kind of on that borderline. Tyus Jones, I think, is probably a drop. Remember, we talked about him going into the All-Star break as someone that I felt was an injury replacement level guy with Beal and Grayson Allen out. When those guys came back, I told you Jones was probably going to be a drop. Bada bing, bada boom. 23 minutes in a bad ball game. What do you do overall with this team? Also, by the way, don't say I didn't warn you about Nick Richards. And I know I wasn't the only one. I know I saw tweets from my good buddy Matt Smith. I know I saw some notes from the great Josh Lloyd. And we all were trying to warn you that Nick Richards is not good. And a lot of people on Twitter were yelling at me about it. Like, Dan, you're too low on Nick Richards. He's going to be a game changer in Phoenix. He's not. He's just not that good. You can put him anywhere, and that's not going to change the fact that he's a backup center. That's what Nick Richards is. And his block rate was always going to come down from early in the year. So you could drop Nick Richards. You can drop Tyus Jones. You could drop Bol Bol. You can look at Royce O'Neale as a fringe level threes streamer for the most part. You can kind of do the same thing with Grayson Allen, although his minutes seem slightly less secure and his body is a little more beat up this year. But mostly, the Suns have kind of pared themselves back down to just the big three. For better or worse, by the way, it's mostly worse at this point. Phoenix is just a mess. Their pieces just don't fit. They're 3 games under 500. They've lost 4 in a row. They are not even in the play-in right now. Man, that's crazy. You know whose fault this is? It's Frank Vogel's fault. All right, what about the Spurs? First game in the post-Wemby era kind of solidified what we said on the Wemby show yesterday, which I admit I got one thing very wrong, but it was almost a transplanted idea. If you remember what we talked about on the Wemby show, when I kind of circled the wagons a little bit for a while, but the ultimate point was Fox, Chris Paul, Devin Vassell. These are guys that I'm keeping on my roster. I know this wasn't a great game for Vassell, but it was good enough. And then there were all these other guys that we talked about. And I said, Julian Champagny, I don't think we even talked about him, but Keldon Johnson, I said, was going to score a little more. And Jeremy Sohan was going to play in the 20s in minutes. And Stephon Castle is going to continue to be a bench gunner, but the role probably becomes a little bit safer with no Wemby, just because there are going to be a bunch of shots to go around. And Harrison Barnes is going to do a little bit more. But ultimately, what I told you all was I didn't think any of those guys got inside the top 100, including Jeremy Sohan. That was the one that everybody was screaming about on Twitter. Oh, I picked up Sohan. He's the guy. He's the guy. I was like, well, dude is playing near starters minutes on the season already and was sitting near the edge of the top 150 on what I feel is somewhat unsustainable 55% shooting from the field. But even if that holds, you're still talking about a guy that needs to get in the 30s in minutes if he's going to get inside the top 100 in straight 9-cat. I also mentioned on yesterday's show, if you're punting threes or free throws, Sohan does have a shot to be a top 100 guy for your team, but you got to have the right build. The one thing we got wrong on the Wemby show yesterday was I said Sandro Mamukelashvili was probably going to start and play about 14 minutes. That was wrong. Bismack Biyombo started and played about 14 minutes. He actually got 16. But that's the Charles Bassey-less Spurs. Now, extra note. It sounds like Bassey is closer than everybody thought yesterday. And he's the guy, in my opinion, and I tweeted it, and I tweeted about it twice, and we talked about it on the shows. He's the guy that I'm waiting on. Because if Bassey's knee can get right, and he can play even 20 to 22 minutes a game, he can actually be a fantasy value. We've seen it for a couple of seasons now. He doesn't need that much playing time to be very, very good at fantasy basketball. So Bassey's the guy you're watching. Sohan is the guy you're playing if you have that specific punt build. Otherwise, you just sort of take the more solid dudes and give them a little bit extra. And no, to the question I got on Twitter a bunch of times, which is, Dan, don't you think the Spurs are just going to shut it down? I do not. The Spurs are only 3 games out of a play-in spot, and they have a bunch of veterans that don't want to just throw the season. Chris Paul did not go there to throw the season. De'Aaron Fox did not ask to be traded there to throw a season. I know he's dealing with some thumb stuff, #thumb stuff. I'm not buying it. If they're tanking, they're doing it after they're mathematically eliminated, because the Spurs have no chance to get into the bottom crew of teams in the NBA. Out east, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Raptors, the Nets, the Sixers, and the Bulls, 6 teams, all have worse records than the Spurs. In the West, 3 teams have worse records. The Spurs have the 10th worst record in the NBA. They're not about to pull the top lottery spot. And if they went into full tank mode, best case scenario for the Spurs is they fall behind the Blazers and maybe the Bulls, I would think. So I just don't think they're tanking soon. I mean, maybe a month from now, month and a half-ish. To me, it's a long way off. Guys, BetOnline is our fantastic partner and the reason that I've been able to continue to do everything for free so far this year. They are also the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in the calendar year, the year of our calendar, 2025 AD. They've got everything. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. Dude, baseball's in spring training right now. You got baseball right around the corner. You got props. You got in-game plays. You got ability to watch the game. You got, again, most trusted. BetOnline has odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and will cover you on every win. BetOnline, our buddies, the game starts here. Let's scroll on back up to the top. We've done what I think was actually, no, screw the top. Let's go one farther, actually, and talk Lakers-Blazers. And I don't actually care that much about the Lakers side, although it did solidify something I talked about on yesterday's show, which is I think I undersold Rui Hachimura's role on this iteration of the Lakers. Now, I know that Luka and Vanderbilt were both out for this game, but that actually didn't change that much for Rui. Luka, when in, is going to play his 30-some-odd minutes, but that's going to come from sort of a combination of Shake Milton, who got 5 minutes, and Jordan Goodwin, who got 20. By the way, I like Jordan Goodwin, but, he's not a full NBA player type number. And then, they don't want Austin Reeves playing 40 minutes a game, so, 3 or 4 of those would end up over to Luka. To me, it actually doesn't change Rui nearly as much as I thought. And it was the Mark Williams trade being rescinded that really changed things, because now they've gone to a unit, and credit to Jackson Hayes. He's actually embraced this role, and he's suddenly looks a little bit better than we expected. But still not a good center, but for what the Lakers are trying to do, he's their best option there. But Jackson Hayes is not going to play. 28 minutes yesterday is pretty much maxing out for Hayes. That, by the way, is also where some of the Luka minutes and the Vanderbilt minutes are going to go. But for Hachimura, he's just playing right now. And, his fantasy game is at times pretty limited. But he's a pretty good percentages guy who can score a little. He's being forced to rebound a little more because the Lakers run small ball units where he's got to size up a little. And he doesn't get much in the way of defensive stats, but he does sort of accidentally bungle face first into a steal and half a block in most of these ball games. So much like Royce O'Neale, who we just talked about, there is no upside at all. The upside for Hachimura only exists when LeBron James is out, because then he's got to soak up all the front court scoring. But now with Luka around, that might not even be the case so much. But they just need Rui. I said it yesterday. He's one of the lone guys on this team that's willing to actually go near the basket on offense. Jackson Hayes, LeBron are kind of the other ones these days. I think Luka will ultimately get a little closer as he gets his wind back. And Reeves did a better job of driving. But that Charlotte game in particular, literally no one was going anywhere near the hoop. Happened against Utah as well. Now, at least Walker Kessler was good rim protector. Mark Williams is not really. In any event, I think Rui's probably, top 100 to 125 range guy. Probably not that dissimilar from Royce O'Neale. I do think Jackson Hayes, and this is more 9-cat than 8-cat or, punt build type of stuff, but it does actually kind of look like Jackson Hayes can be a top 100-ish range dude. Today's show is sort of angling into the world of specialists. What's Hachimura a specialist at? Nothing really. He's a little bit more of a well-rounded. Jackson Hayes is very much a field goal percent and defensive stats specialist at this point. Royce O'Neale is, mind you, quite hot at the moment, but he's basically a threes specialist. He's hitting 4 threes a game over his last 9. That's a lot. Some of these guys have been specialists all year long. We just haven't really talked about him that way. And that's on me. I should do a better job there. As far as Portland goes, Robert Williams was back. I know Toumani Camara had a big ball game, and it does to me still feel like it's just a matter of time before he becomes an everyday startable dude. When he's running hot, he is that guy. When he's not that guy. It unfortunately sits pretty heavily on how he's shooting lately. And over the last 2 weeks, he's shooting 51%. So he's been really, really good. But then that falls to 38 for a couple of weeks, and he's outside the top 100 again. Still, it does to me feel like we are one shutdown away from Toumani Camara being a very easy everyday play. And that probably makes him, I'm going to say yes, that makes him startable in most head-to-head leagues because he's so close. I've referred to him as the king of the streamers because in my eyes, he's the best schedule play you could find, or probably the worst everyday play, rest of season guy. But all right now, all it's taking is DeAndre Ayton being out, and there's more for Camara. Not that he's playing center or anything. Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan got those minutes, but There's just sort of like every time you take one piece out of the puzzle, other guys goop into that remaining area. And Kamara is likely rostered in your league already because he's been so close to being a full season guy for so long. He's 36% rostered. For some reason, he's actually getting dropped over the last day. I don't understand that. He's had a couple of pretty good games in a row. So, yeah, I think I'm telling you things you already know. Denny Avdia, similar situation. The good news here with Avdia is that he did it with Jeremy Grant healthy. Grant was absolutely atrocious in this game, but he was there. He existed. Anthony Simons was also terrible. The Lakers did a pretty good job on those dudes. Also, first game out of the All-Star break, so some guys are going to come out rusty. Grant has, he's, nothing changes there. Same with Simons. These are guys that I've tried to tell you guys to sell high on pretty much any time you could. Avdia is a tough one to me because he's been really bad before this ball game when Grant is in. But he's also going to be a guy who's sort of over-rostered right now. To me, a lot of the players on the Blazers split the head-to-head roto discussion right down the pipe. Like, Kamara has been an easy yes in head-to-head for a long time, but not that easy in roto. Same with Avdia. You want to use these guys when you know you're going to get a good game out of them. Jeremy Grant, I haven't used him in any format. Anthony Simons, he's been startable in most formats lately, so that's it where you're not getting the split, I suppose. Scoot Henderson is probably more a safe head-to-head play these days than roto because you don't know when it's going to be a 30-minute game versus a 22-minute one. And then we come to the centers. I told you guys, Donovan Clingan is a great ad, but there was no guarantee he was just going to get 30 minutes a game the rest of the way. The Lakers ran him right off the court. He had 3 blocks, cool, but he couldn't keep up. So they went to Time Lord. Robert Williams played 25 minutes. He had 8 and 6, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 4 out of 5 shooting. I can't believe I'm saying this, and it's ruining the reasons for you guys to listen to the rest of the podcast, but I actually think that Robert Williams might have been the best news to come out of yesterday's card. So add Robert Williams in roto. Head-to-head, it's a tough one because he's going to sit back-to-backs, but I would make sure that Time Lord is on your team in any games cap format right now. And he's not going to get 25 minutes every day. He and Clingan are going to flip-flop, but we know enough about the Time Lord to know that if he gets 20 minutes, he's startable in fantasy, and then anything over that is gravy. All right, let's pivot back up to the top of the card. The rest of these games actually didn't have as many storylines as those last 2, so that's why we spent a whole bunch of time on them. Also, we're going to do an underdog. We're going to do an underdog card together today. We're going to do one. I didn't end up doing my card yesterday. I hadn't locked it in yet, and then the Wemby news broke. So, I pulled the Keldon Johnson half. The Nick Smith half would have hit. So that was something at least. But as soon as the Wemby news hit, there was no way I was going to throw a Keldon Johnson under into the mix. And as it turns out, that one would have been the one that ended it. But we'll do an underdog card together in just a little bit. Let's zip through some of these other games. Grizzlies, to me, like, Santi Aldama probably should be on rosters, but also I have no problem if you guys don't want to bother. The Grizzlies' safe plays are just the big 3. Bane, Ja, and JJJ. And Ja was bad in this one. And frankly, Ja is a bad 9-cat pick, no matter how you slice it. You guys can keep doing it over and over again, and it's just not going to work. 8-cat, obviously, he's a lot better. No notes really on the Pacers side either. Miles Turner was great in his return. Halliburton was very good. Remember when everybody was in a full panic? Not you guys. Remember when everybody was in a full panic over Tyrese Halliburton? He's now number 13 on the season after being whatever it was, like top 60 the first month. Last 3 months, Halliburton's number 8. I guess he's fine, guys. By the way, over that same stretch, Tyrese Maxey's number 5 and Dame is number 6. Josh Hart is number 12. That's crazy. I'm not an Andrew Nembhard guy these days. I mean, this is a perfectly reasonable line, and if he warms back up again, he becomes kind of your like punt threes play. But when he's cold, you don't need to roster him. And then obviously Siakam will be fine. Boston beat up on Philly. This game was over early. No real notes on the Boston side. The minutes were obviously low for these guys because this game was a blowout. Drew Holiday does not need to be rostered. He's I don't think he's healthy. You could say maybe he's well enough to go, but there's no point in waiting through that at this point. Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Paul George, Joel Embiid, Quentin Grimes. You start the starters in Philly. Although, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, Embiid came out after the ball game and was like, "It sucks. I can't do the things I'm used to doing. I'm a step slow." And he kind of hinted that he needs to get another surgery, which is a terrifying thought. And I think probably wipes him out from being drafted next year also. But we'll cross that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, you probably can't sell him. If you can, you probably should, but I doubt you can. So just start the starters, and if Embiid sits, everybody gets a bump, and Yabusele probably becomes startable in that particular spot. Cleveland, no news really. We're half monitoring DeAndre Hunter, who played 26.5 minutes here, had 9 points and 4 boards. I just don't think there's enough usage there for him to get high enough scoring numbers to counterweight the fact that he doesn't do many other things from a fantasy perspective. So stick with what you know. And then Brooklyn, I absolutely detest the Nets rotations. Frankly, the Nets might be the most annoying team in fantasy basketball right now. D'Lo hurt his ankle midway through this ball game, so stick him on your bench for the time being. Day'Ron Sharpe had a fantastic game, but he only played 20 minutes. So you can't count on that until Nick Claxton is done, because those two are straight up splitting the center minutes, not down the middle, but there's just like no other universe where they can get on the court at the same time. And Claxton has actually been good enough to play lately. Well, he missed all 4 of his free throws here. Cam Johnson's been startable, but obviously not as good as before. So Claxton, Johnson, barely D'Lo. Even he hasn't really been there. Zaire Williams has been on and off decent, as has Keon Johnson. But every time I say, you know what, maybe I'll take a shot on these guys, they lay an absolute massive egg. And, by the way, it sounds like Cam Thomas is not all that far from coming back. They're going to bring him along slowly, probably, moved the page, probably, 18 to 20 minutes for possibly a couple of weeks after he comes back. There's really no reason to push him. I don't even know that Cam Thomas is going to be rosterable when he comes back, but probably worth exploring at the very least. And my take at this point is I want nothing to do with any of the fringe guys on the Nets until Nick Claxton gets shut down, whenever that might be. And maybe that's not until the last day of the regular season, so maybe it's not something we need to worry about at all. But when that happens, we're going to want to take a hard plunge into Day'Ron Sharpe. Ooh, phrasing. Otherwise, I need a bunch of dudes out of the way if I'm going to take a shot on some of these other guys. And at some point, Noah Clowney's going to resurface as well, but I also don't think he's necessarily a 9-cat guy. With the Nets playing everybody 26, 27 minutes, nobody's getting real starters minutes on this team because they want to lose. The tanking this year is really, really rough. It's so rough. I bitched about it a couple shows back. The pre-tanking's been terrible with teams running their JV squads out there. The Nets haven't bothered with the JV squad. They've just played their main guys. This won't let them go for a full game. Ugh. Ayo Dosunmu hurt his wrist very late in this ball game. He was coming off the bench, which surprised me a little bit. Lonzo Ball started over him, as did Buzelis. What did we learn from this Bulls game? I think Lonzo, he's up near 30 minutes a game. Lonzo's probably startable in Roto. I don't know about head-to-head because he's going to skip the back-to-backs. Jalen Smith hurt his noggin early. He's in concussion protocol. And then, look, Ayo hasn't been as good as we expected. I'm trying to hold him in games cap formats. If he has to miss any time for head-to-head leaguers, you could probably move on. And that's, again, one of those situations where if it was November, I'd tell you to hold in every format. But now some of you are going into your playoff weeks, and you got to make sure that you're not taking any zeros. So give Ayo a game. Let's see what the report is before Chicago's next contest, and we'll take it from there. But if he's out, I think head-to-head leaguers you can probably drop. Roto, I think I'd try to hang on just a little bit longer. And then Buzelis, you guys know I'm not as high on him as many of the guests that we had on the show. I just felt like some very hot shooting was kind of papering over a lack of other stats because he was hitting some threes and blocking some shots. But if you take away the threes, then all you have left is, 5 rebounds and a block, 1.2 blocks a game or whatever. That's probably not enough. So I don't know. Maybe the Bulls eventually shut down Giddey or Kobe White or Vooch or whatever, and then things change. But in the meantime, I'm not a Buzelis truther. I don't know that he necessarily needs to be on rosters. Sorry. You guys can kill me if you want. It is what it is. For the Knicks, you just play the starters. Unfortunately, I wasn't home yesterday when the Josh Hart news broke, so I couldn't get Miles Deuce. I couldn't get the Deuce into my lineups. But obviously, and this is an overtime game, so everybody got even extra, you just play whoever Tibbs is starting because he's going to play him 90% of the damn ball game. Are you going to pick up McBride? I mean, Thibodeau said that the Hart thing was day-to-day, so I'm not doing anything until basically the last minute on Knicks games. Magic beat the Hawks, which Orlando needs wins wherever they can get them. The Hawks just have completely fallen apart, basically since Jalen Johnson went down. That's tough. They actually, the Hawks were kind of fun before Jalen Johnson went down. For the Magic, Cole Anthony had another decent ball game. To me, he's not startable every day. More of a schedule play kind of guy. Wendell Carter Jr. had 15 rebounds. He's fully passed Goga Batadze lately. Did not see that one coming. But also, I don't trust Wendell's fantasy game because it's not good. He doesn't block shots. He doesn't get steals. He gets some rebounds and a decent field goal percent. And that's pretty much it. And not even a good field goal percent this year. So, pass. Hopefully, you've dropped Goga already. Magic to me is Franz, Paolo, and eventually Suggs will come back. But that's it. Franz and Paolo right now. That's it. The Hawks, this is turning into what I thought it would, which I'll admit, I was kind of shocked when George Niang had a really good ball game, and then LeVert had 2 really good ball games. And this game, I think, to me, was a better exemplified what you can expect from Atlanta, which is we're going to try to figure out which wings are playing well enough to deserve minutes on a given night. So in this one, you got a slightly better game out of Zachary Reese-Shea. He couldn't shoot the ball, but at least he had 12 rebounds. And then Niang hit a couple of threes with 6 boards, so that's not terrible. But we had sort of the bad iteration of Karis LeVert with terrible free throw shooting, and he missed his shots. Mo G's just simply not that good. Neither is Terrence Mann. And then Vit Krejci's out for a while, or he'd probably have been the guy in this group. I think with the Hawks, you can treat Reese-Shea, Niang, and LeVert pretty much all as schedule play level guys in 9-cat. LeVert, you can give a little bit more wiggle room to in points leagues just because, who cares that he missed a bunch of his free throws? It was still a bad ball game, but not a back-breaking one the way it was for you 9-cat players, such as myself. And I don't know that any one of these guys even sniffs the top 100. So Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Okongwu, Fiend. End of sentence. Clippers lost in Milwaukee. Chris Dunn is on a ridiculous steals heater right now. That is some true specialist level appeal. And look, there's a value in that. Chris Dunn's over his last basically 6 games since he came back from injury. He has 3, 1, 2, 5, 3, and 6 steals in those. He hasn't done a whole lot else. Somewhere around 4 assists and 4 rebounds, I think, in that same stretch. Pretty much doesn't ever shoot the basketball. And that's fine. That's not what they need out of him. They want the defense, which he's giving them right now. And as soon as we pick him up, then we're going to go into a lull. Because that's how steals are. They fluctuate. They're volatile. The consistency of that stat just isn't there. It's fine for Roto if you catch him on a nice steals heater, which he's on right now. But for head-to-head, you're going to pick him up, and then it's going to stop happening. So fine, specialist, if you need it, feel free. Some of that also was Norm Powell being out, although Amir Coffey was the guy who got the start. So it didn't really change things all that much for Dunn. Changed him a little. Bogdan Bogdanovic had 15 points and 20 bench minutes. I think that's probably about as good as it gets for him. Ben Simmons here played 20 minutes as well with Kawhi Leonard back in. And again, you throw Norm in there, and that is just going to squeeze these guys out even further. Kawhi, every day, just gets a little bit more like himself. Didn't shoot the ball as well in this game, but that well-roundedness, it's starting to show up. And Ivica Zubac finally didn't miss a bunch of free throws. That was cool. No surprises for the Clippers. Bucks, this is game one without Bobby Portis of 25. Not surprisingly, Kyle Kuzma played a ton, 37 minutes to lead the Bucks in minutes played, although Giannis and Dame were on minutes caps, different ones between the two of them. Giannis, I think he could have come back in at the end of that ball game, but the Bucks were playing really well, so they just sort of let it go. Brook Lopez, his job security is amazing right now with no Bobby Portis around because, Jericho Sims, you think he's going to take a minute from Brook Lopez? Hell no. So Brook, Dame, Giannis, those are the easy ones. Kuzma, you can go ahead and play in points leagues only. Maybe if you're punting like turnovers and free throws in head-to-head, but that's a stretch. And I think Charlotte-Denver is the last game we haven't covered. Yeah, so Miles Bridges has gone totally nuts this week, which, of course, I'm playing against a team that has Miles Bridges and LeBron James on it. These teams that got an extra game jammed in, and they're both going buck wild. Charlotte is intriguing. I don't want to read too much into this game because there was no Mark Williams and no LaMelo Ball on the second half of a back-to-back, but that is going to happen again, like within the next 4 days because they've got another back-to-back Monday, Tuesday. What did we learn? Well, Yusuf Nurkic started and nearly triple-doubled in 19 minutes, which is kind of the thought process of like, well, what if Nurk plays 24 minutes on this team? Is that going to be enough? Probably, but I don't know that he's ever going to get up to 24 minutes. Musa Diabate came off the bench and played 29, but in the next game, Mark Williams is going to be back, and those guys might not even really see the floor. Nurk played, 16, 17 minutes against the Lakers, something like that? Is Diabate going to play in the next ball game? I don't know how you add these guys. So I think I'm probably just playing Miles Bridges and then the two guys who rested. Feels like we're just trying too hard if we want to find something else on this team. But keep an eye on Nurk. That would be the other one. But Mark Williams would have to get basically a full shutdown for that to be anything of note. Russell Westbrook, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., everybody's back for the Nuggets. I can't remember if any of those guys was back in the previous ball game. So Jokic and Jamal Murray, obviously those guys are locked in. Jamal has found his stride, man. That he's actually number 13 over the last 3 months. How about that? Jamal is Jamal again. It took like 2 months for him to really get his sea legs back, but he's doing crazy now. Obviously, Jokic, dominant. And then we look at these other guys, and to me, Aaron Gordon is not a guy I'm playing unless I'm punting free throws. Christian Brown is a hold. Michael Porter Jr. is a hold. And I'm going to give Russ a little bit longer. There's a 5-turnover game that otherwise was not that terrible. 26 bench minutes. Prior to his injury, he was out playing at least one of the starters pretty much every night. And I wouldn't be that surprised if we saw Russ get back to that. And frankly, I wouldn't be that surprised if we saw one of these starters get hurt again in the next week. It's just the NBA these days. So probably hang on to Russ. If you're punting free throws, the Russ hold is a lot simpler. If you're not punting free throws, it's not quite as easy as a hold, but I still would, I think, recommend it. Let's head over to UnderdogFantasy.com. What do we got going on today? I believe it's a 9-game card. You got Golden State and Sacramento opening up their post-All-Star break festivities. So maybe do we look at like a Jimmy Butler or a Steph under? We've seen a lot of teams go under coming out of the break. Kind of, rusty would be the word. Do we go Jonas Valanciunas? Something with Jonas off the bench in his 16 minutes or whatever it is? Do we go Moses Moody? I don't think I'm going to do anything in this game until I know who's starting for the Warriors. Milwaukee and Washington. It's a back-to-back. I don't think Giannis plays in this game. Well, who knows? Let's see. Do we have anything? Ooh, Keyshawn George has looked pretty good lately. Do we go Keyshawn on the Milwaukee side? Or on the Wizards side? I'm going to say no, because it sounds like we might see Chris Middleton pop up. Knicks Cavs? Donovan Mitchell always goes big in these important ball games. Maybe we'll go higher on Donovan Mitchell. We'll get that one in there. I think he's going to have to give his team that little extra boost. Memphis, Orlando. This is an intriguing one. Memphis, Orlando. Memphis is too unpredictable. What else we got floating around on the ledger here? Miami, Toronto, Pelicans, Mavs. What about someone on the Mavs? Maybe a Max Christie prop? No? Not in there. We got a Dante Exum projection, but not a Max Christie projection. Jose Alvarado. Eve Missy. I thought he was out still. Trey Murphy's been good. Maybe PJ Washington is the answer, since he's basically the only dude in the Mavs front court. I'm going to go higher on PJ Washington for point, rebound, and assist, because I don't know how hot he's going to be shooting. I don't know if he's going to get to 17 points, but he's going to have to be out there just doing everything, and the minutes are going to be crazy high for PJ. So that'll be my second play on the card. Do I want to go with a third, or we just go with 2 today? I'm leaning towards 2, but it's not locked in yet. Spurs, nah. Minnesota, Houston. Freddie VanVleet sounds like he's probably not back for this one, but Jabari Smith Jr. is. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go lower point, rebound, assists on Jabari Smith, I think, because I can't imagine he's going to play a ton in his first game back. 15.5 is a low number, though. That might be too low. Maybe we'll just leave with 2. All right, we're going with 2 names. Donovan Mitchell higher, PJ Washington higher. How public of me? I go $3 or $2? We'll go $2. Nice and easy. All right, play along with me, folks. Old Man is the promo code over at UnderdogFantasy.com. Unlock up to $1,000 in deposit match bonus and a free play. That would have made this a lot easier. You can do both of these and then throw the 3 free play in as the third pick'em, third projection in your pick'em card, and that'll boost those odds up from 3 to, I think, 6x. That's juicy as hell. Go turn your 2 into 12. Or you can go bigger. I don't care. Again, that promo code is OldMan at UnderdogFantasy.com, or just click the link in the show description. And that, friends, is our program today. Thanks for watching, everybody. I forgot to tell you earlier on, you guys need to subscribe. I forgot to tell you anything at the beginning of the show, which means no one's going to remember to do it. But if you made it this far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Comments are open on the YouTube side. Follow on Twitter at Dan Bespris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky Network. And I think this might be our only show today. We'll see. It's going to come down to how much time we've got, because you guys know that on these like medium to big size cards, I kind of like to look at the transactions trend. So if we do have time for another show, it'll probably be the most added players and whether or not you should bother. But I'll tell you right now, the most dropped player is Bol Bol. By the way, the Spurs said that Charles Bassey could return as soon as tonight. He's probably not going to play more than about 18 minutes. But you know what? 18 might be enough. And I picked him up in a few spots, and you guys called me an idiot. Who's the idiot now? Still me. Still me. Okay, that's the program. I'll see you guys. I'm Dan for Old Man Squad. Like, rate, subscribe. I'll see you soon. Maybe later today.